We're Hey, everybody. Welcome to an all-new X is for Podcast Live, your premier live comic podcast for modern Marvels, Chrono Skimming Classics, and a whole lot more. I'm Nico, and you can check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and Hive at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION.
Hey everybody, it's Nathan. You can find me at Dazzler AOA. That's like Dazzler in the Age of Apocalypse on Twitter, Instagram, Mastodon, Hive, like everywhere now.
And I'm
Pterodactyl,
TK.
Triceratops.
Right, Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus.
And I'm TK. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Hive, Tumblr, basically everywhere at XNateXGrayX.
And you can check the show out on Twitter, Instagram, and everywhere else on social media as we expand our platform at X is for Podcast. And we could not be more excited than to bring you this new format of our classic program. We are doing kind of a soft launch, giving ourselves a little bit of room to figure out how this whole thing is going to go. But X is for Podcast Live is just such an amazing opportunity to get to talk about these amazing books that we love so much and to talk about them a little bit more big form, right? I'm so excited to do this with you all. And this is just such an exciting transition. And I couldn't be more excited than to have you all with me. Like, really, I'm kind of like, you know.
We're gonna have fun.
Yay.
We're going to have so much fun. And I see Nathan rocking the XI4P swag. I got to give it up. Nathan is officially the X's for Podcast winner of the day. That's the no prize right there. Right? Loving everything about it. But, you know, whether you wear the cool hoodies or not, we are all going to have an amazing time. And I love that we have such an incredible crew of people. And I don't want to hold anybody back. So I think if you guys are cool with it, let's roll right into our first bit of coverage in our new format, where we're going to take a look at the entire month of titles all in one go as best we can. We're going to take a look today at X-Men number 17, Immortal X-Men and X-Men Red number 8, right? Kind of like, you know, two books together, both 8s. We're going to be, but I think they're both 10s. We're going to take a look as well at X-Force 34 or 101 Reasons to Hate Beast. And then we're going to take a look at 2 5-issue miniseries that are like, hey, let's look at the past and let's see why these versions of these characters maybe don't work as well in the present, with Patch 1 through 5 and Gambit 1 through 5, which should have been called Gambit and Storm in the Adventures of the Fantastic Four stuff Claremont never got to finish so hard. Oh my God. Anyway, all right. Well, I think it's time to get to X-Men number 17 then.
Let's do it.
All right. I can't be more excited. TK, take it away.
Should we introduce our contributing panelists first?
I'd love it.
Cool. Let's start with Kyle.
Hey everyone, I'm Kyle. I am on pretty much all socials at Drantis82.
And then Jake.
Hi everyone, I'm Jake. You can find me on Twitter at Omega Sentinel. That's OH Mega Sentinel. You can also find me on Instagram at The Heart Farmer. That's at The Heart Farmer, all one word.
And last but not least, Jonah.
Hey everyone, it's me, Jonah. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at Peak Jonah. That's Peak.
And we are here to discuss X-Men number 17. Now, Nico, you just called X-Force number 34 101 Reasons to Hate Beast. I think this is like approximately 50 and a half reasons to hate Forge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was not prepared for a world in which I was going to have that many reasons to hate Forge. So this was kind of a rough read.
Agreed. I want to love Forge. I do. It's like, you always root for that person that's just like, Dirt Boy comes from the ground, you know what I mean? And, like, you just want to like see him do better. But, like,
But
come on,
Forge has always been kind of suspect, hasn't he? Like his first big on-screen invention was the mutant depower gun, which came in very handy during Inferno. But his first thing was to make a gun that takes away mutant powers. That I feel like that's a very suspect origin.
I mean, and he was a bit of a dick in Life Death. Like, let's be honest. Like, the way he treated Aurora was jackass extreme.
I mean, all of this, okay, yeah, I just, even creating the depowering gun, like Forge's power is to create technology. And I think at times he is that person that like just has to let it out, and letting it out for him is kind of not the best, not going to end up with the best situation. But he has never seemed so like Hank McCoy-like and gleeful in doing some crazy shit as he has in this arc. Which I feel like kind of resolved with a little bit of like, don't worry, he's actually not Hank McCoy.
Well,
oh yeah, when he was in the Green Lagoon and he's like, Caliban, let me tell you about what I did. Like, that's gonna absolve everything.
Well, and can you imagine, like, because I mean, it's the X-Men, so it's a mutant depowering gun, but could you imagine if he was like, hey guys, I have this Avengers depowering ray?
Which I'm sure he could invent.
Yeah, why not?
It's a bit of a scary thing though, because all the big geniuses of Krakoa, left to their own devices, unhinged and unoppressed, have kind of gone way far off the ethical deep end. I mean, Sinister was already there. Beast has been headed in that direction for a while, and Forge has kind of always been on that trajectory as well, but there were restraining forces, and now there aren't nearly as many restraining forces on them, and some real heinous things are happening.
I can't disagree. That said, the insane, intricate horror beauty of the idea of folding a mutant into a suit that has all of its powers, that has its mind that you can also get rid of.
You mean Cala abs?
Calipex a little bit more. You see kind of calisternum.
Oh.
It's horrible, but it's also the implications of Krakoan technology are pretty insane. And I really do appreciate when somebody is willing to show us the thing that we never would have thought of when we were presented with the initial setup for the technology. I thought Dollhouse was really great at that. Mm-hmm. And by Joss Whedon, may he pay for his crimes. But I thought he did a really... I thought he did a great job of being like, oh yeah, you thought we were just making like living sex robots. Here's some insane things you could actually do if you had people's minds stored. And it's really similar here where, I don't think any of us would have thought of Caliban's suit, but it's pretty useful.
The last I saw of Caliban, he was kidnapping Kitty Pryde to marry her. So he's gone through a very large journey in terms of who he is as a mutant and what he can do. Because Forge was most scared of them getting their hands on the DNA of Caliban for his mutant abilities that seem unending, unlimited, endless. I have no idea what this character can do currently. So it was very fascinating to see that Caliban is the linchpin in making sure that Forge could, in theory, get out, but also he's like a computer navigator. It's kind of like if Master Chief can turn off Cortana. That'd be funny.
He does really go from like Newsies extra to like American Gladiator, and I love that you missed that whole thing, and you're like, I went from him being like a creeper to a bodysuit.
Well, he was kind of like not so much the hunchback of the sewer system immortalized, and now he's like this all-powerful, huge mutant that like everybody wants to use him, and because he's a la in the vein of Scarlet Witch and Jean Grey, you gotta make them not have any agency in their stories because everybody has to use them as a tool.
I mean, he's like the Phantom, like with Kitty Pryde is this Christine, I guess. Like
she would be very happy in that comparison because
love never dies. The Phantom comes back so jacked.
I think the whole point of Caliban is he doesn't get happy. He doesn't ever get to be happy. He's always like something terrible is always happening to him or the people that he loves, and he never really has the ability to do anything but watch it happen. Even when he gets juiced up by Apocalypse, because that's what happens to him. He gets juiced up by Apocalypse, and he still really can't do anything to help himself or the other people around him.
I mean, he can't even kidnap Jubilee then. Like, come on.
I feel like he had some fun with X-Force when they were in the purple outfits.
Well, they really dumbed him down, though, and I did not like that.
Being
he
dumb
was an
is
adult.
fun, Jake. Being dumb is very fun.
Well, hold on. Because the dumbest mutant that has the best abs and pecs is fucking Alex Summers, and I want him out of this fucking book.
Oh,
I was actually really going to try to avoid talking about
Colossus. I was like, wait, the Colossus of it all? What? Wait, where is he? What?
Yeah, I mean, we are still dealing with the fact that Alex is here. We got a big taste of that last issue with a nonsensical fight that I just feel like we really all thought the Summers were past.
Come on.
But, we're still dealing with this really weird team, and this book is still deciding to have the kind of it's kind of not the best qualities of Immortal X-Men, where there's not really a hard intention to focus on a character every issue. It's just like we kind of focus on one and then we kind of forget that the others are there and then they get thrown in. Firestar is really falling to this. Even Magic is, which is so unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, Havoc's there. He was sitting around this whole time.
See, what I don't like about this current team of it seems like they're stuck on dragging up old issues. So, obviously with Alex, that fight resonates, that airplane fight in what was 97, 98 of Uncanny, way back when. Even Caliban's suit, as cool as it is, really is a throwback to the Kulan Gath saga when he was merged with Charles Xavier, and the conversations that they had at the time. It's very it seems too regressive, and it's not moving anybody forward in any way.
Yep.
Well, Sync got a little bit of a step forward, though.
True.
I mean, people do get moved forward. It's just kind of who is it is not not everybody's going to get the chance. We know that already. There's not enough time. It didn't happen in the original 12 issues. Some people, Sync is doing great in this book overall, which don't get me wrong, I absolutely love. But I feel like our community went through a lot to put Firestar on this team. And if we all had to do that, I feel like there should, by this point, 13, 14, 15, 16. We really ought to have had something where we're at the very least, where we're okay, she definitely, it was important that she be here. Not Magic faxes her away.
and there's such an interesting story that could be told by diving into her, her idea that assimilationism is the way to go, and Krakoan is no, we're proud, we're mutant, we're here, get used to it. And Firestar's no, I want to be an Avenger. You could tell some interesting stories with that, but instead you've just got her standing in the background and getting sent to Avengers Mansion for some reason.
So it's Firestar and it's Havoc, and they're doing Bialystok and Bloom, and it's I wanna be an Avenger, and they're just tap dancing around everywhere because they're complete sellouts. I love this. Sorry, really gay musical theater reference, but also Mel Brooks. So
And also kind of more of an interesting idea than we've had for these two characters. So how can we complain? I mean, ultimately, though, the big thing here is, so as I mentioned, we have this weird application of the technology that I don't think any of us could have thought of. But then we have a hiccup with the technology that we were told about really early on and told that at some point we kind of should expect. And that is that somebody got resurrected when the original was still there. In this case, Wolverine, Laura Kinney, the one that Sync fell in love with and spent years having a relationship with. Beautiful and tragic.
Hard to talk about. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, like, I remember when this show switched over to the Krakoan protocol kind of stuff. That was a legitimate concern me, Jonah, and Kyle all had, like, day one. What happens when there's two of them?
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
and
I remember that. Yeah, and I'm worried now because we've got what are they calling her? Alpha Wolverine?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so what happens now? Do they just have separate backups now? Or it's a lot of questions that are being created because of this new situation.
'Tis the fate
Absolutely.
of a Wolverine to always have to deal with cloning. It seems like he will never escape cloning. It will be part of all of their backstories. I'm just waiting for, you know, the Fang Dakin clone as well as the new Gabby clone. Give us all the clones at this point. Where's the Jonathan clone? I was really fascinated with this storyline going in to go save Darwin. I actually thought that was a really cool idea of let's go save this mutant. Because I was like, okay. And then it was less of a team story and much more of a solo story, which feels weird for an X-Men title that's meant to focus on the X-Men team for Krakoa. But I was okay with it. And ultimately, I think I'm happy with the way we got Laura. No, let me rephrase this. I'm happy with the way of what happened with Darwin. I thought that was super unique and interesting. Him being uploading his consciousness to survive was a really great take on the character and were a really great step forward for him, I think. But I don't know exactly how to feel about the Laura stuff yet, because while I'm happy for Sync, I don't know what this means, as Nico pointed out, for anything. This is brand new territory that I think might be starting to be explored, which is cool, but I don't really know if I'm happy that it's with a Wolverine.
Yeah. Poor Laura. She's been through so much of a convoluted background already. Like, do we really need two Lauras running around? Do we really need an old lady Laura? Do we need old lady Laura?
Do you guys remember when Claremont had her be like, am whore, not whole?
Oh.
Jake, I feel like you've got thoughts.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have started to see this explored. Like, first of all, in this issue, Forge burns the Caliban suit, which I thought was just so gruesome and chilling to begin with. But also in X-Men Unlimited, we had that whole Maggot story where where it was Eni, I believe, got duplicated, and Emma Frost was like, we're gonna kill that dupe, we're gonna kill it and fix things. And so I do think there is some real cause for concern. What's gonna happen here? How do they resolve it? You know, by virtue of the fact that Wolverine Alpha is so old, you know, you can argue that she's essentially a different person than our prime Laura, but I'm sure there's going to be some debate around that. And honestly, I'm curious to see who stands up on what sides, because I do think Emma Frost is going to be one of the people who like stands up and says, nope, it's one or the other, guys, pick it.
Well, you know who's not voting? Darwin.
Who knows?
Okay,
Forge came in with a zettabyte of extra data.
Exactly.
Yeah, Darwin is in the system. Darwin is uploaded into that Arbor Magna.
Yeah.
He's going to become part of that voting block that is Krakoa,
I thought you were going to say voting block.
They're the ones that show. That's how the Quiet Council should solve all of their problems.
Dance off, but Xavier with that poncy little "to me, my X-Men"
Exactly.
House of X would always win.
Yes.
That's pretty much what I'm always making my my House of X Xavier action figure do, is just vogue the house down.
As
All right.
well,
they've got all that extra wrist and like ankle action. You can really do it.
Well, guys, we gotta start wrapping this one up. Everybody's got to throw those final thoughts at X-Men number 17 by the amazing team of Dugan and Cassara.
One thing I do really want to mention, I was not a huge fan of the Cassara art in X-Force. I just didn't connect with it. I'm actually really loving it in this X-Men book. The way he draws these characters in particular, it really resonates with me.
Love it. It's the art's beautiful. Although, like, I swear, if we're gonna have to go through another X-Men vote, like, let's make it worthwhile next time. Like, it tore the community apart, and for no reason.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
I just feel like this was an example of where Jerry Duggan really loves certain eras of X-Men that I also love, but I feel like I've had people who loved them in the time since that have already put to bed a lot of these stories, and retracing some of them doesn't feel like advancement. Moving forward isn't always evolution. Sometimes it's just not being where you were.
Geez. I am really hoping that we get some time with the team actually trying to come together and work through their differences. Because I, as I've said multiple times in the past, I'm really not a fan of infighting.
I'm playing Sinister Scavenger Hunt for all of my X-Men reading now, and so I'm wondering whether or not Forge has always had that diamond motif on his headband. Because if it's dovetailed with him becoming a like creepy soup mind alternate Caliban burning monster, maybe there's something to it.
Last word, Jonah.
I think this overall story, because even before reading X-Men 17, I went back and read 15 and 16 again as well, just to make sure I was fresh up on everything. I think it had a very interesting setup. I don't know if the payoff is exactly what I was looking for. Maybe with a different character or this kind of story with somebody else outside of a Wolverine would have been really interesting. I really love the art. God, Forge is so hot. It's ridiculous. I think he gets left out on a lot of sexiest X-Men lists, and that is a damn shame. And with our resident diversity hire of Firestar, I really do think she needs her own story. I really need her to be at the spotlight of an X-Men issue or a story, because I think it's really important that she gets that time to really kind of develop with the team.
We will never recover from resident diversity hire, Jonah. That was calling it. We can't do better.
Commercial.
Hi, guys.
Hey, we back.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, so we've got 3 new people with us. So, Raven, you want to introduce yourself? Oh my God, you're looking fabulous today, too.
Hello, darlings. Oh, you're so lucky this hooker got dressed this morning because I woke up, I'm like wrapped up in a blanket, hair looked like shit, robe over me. I'm like, it's fine. Oh God, I'm gonna be on camera. Fuck that noise. Hoe it up, hoe it up. Okay, we're good, we're good, we're good. How do you do? I am Sanguine Threads, and you can come over and find me on Instagram and TikTok right now.
Hey,
everybody.
It's Mr. Toybox. How's it going?
What's up? ¿Qué pasa, mi gente? Tarturo. Good to be here. All you guys are looking lovely. We're live. Life is good.
And then Steve Babe.
Yeah, hello, it's me, Steve, and yeah, I'm on all the social medias at the links below.
All right.
At Howdy Duda on all of them, HOWDYDUDA.
So we are gathered here to talk about murder lesbians and Abigail Brand, who may also be a murder pansexual. Let's go with that.
She's just murder. She's just murder.
Yeah. So like, okay. So I got to dive into the X-Men, Immortal X-Men of it all, right? So like, how are you feeling after this issue? Because this is like everything I wanted, and like I could get still so much more out of it. Like the reveal, like, is Mystique all along been Sherlock Holmes? Like, first off, like,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that was the first thing I put together.
Well, I love the idea that Mystique is like the historical Sherlock Holmes when there's not a historical Sherlock Holmes. So I guess there was one in the Marvel universe instead of just a typical guy.
Maybe he's related to all of those 2 million-year-old humans.
Somebody's stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's been
nice
hinted at. It's been hinted at for a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah.
it's been hinted.
The fact that Gillen picked that thread up and like put it on panel and gave us this whole issue, like exploring that in all these different time zones or timelines, I guess. Not timelines, whatever, different periods of time. Just so cool. Seeing Sinister's history with Destiny and Mystique, the big reveal at the end, just like understanding Sinister a little bit more as a character. I can't get enough Immortal X-Men. I love that every issue you explore a lot about different characters, but it comes through the viewpoint of a single one, and that's just given us such great issues. Whether it was Destiny's or Shaw's or Emma's, like they have just been so good, and this is no exception. And it was a nice, like, let's take a beat. Let's, tell some history after all the shenanigans of Judgment Day, which was a great crossover. But I'm glad that we're catching our breath a little bit. Although I would say I don't think we're catching it for too long, because I think all of this is a very nice tee up for the upcoming Age of Sinister.
And I think this book really did a smart job, like using Judgment Day to its advantage, because not every book benefited from Judgment Day. Some books clunked on Judgment Day a little hard, and I feel like Gillen in his master storytelling always really makes sure his script reflects how brilliant the artist he's working with is. So it always feels like it's written to that artist's ability. And while sometimes I feel like a book started at issue 1 and story A, and now that we're at issue 12 or 13, I'm like, oh, I'm furious. This isn't the book I started. This stopped being the book I started so long ago, but in a way where I feel like Kieran Gillen is touring me around what it's meant to be so many runs of X-Men. I feel like I'm getting a history lesson in a very modern way. I feel included in the conversation. I don't know. This has been a really incredible experience to read.
Speaking of history lesson, a return to the Black Womb Project.
Yeah,
Amanda Mueller, like what?
From X-Men Forever, he picked up that thread. I was like, oh, he's trying to make it all make sense. Like, come on.
Exactly. Yes. And like going to like the eugenics of it all and the experimenting on mutant babies and bloodlines and like not quite justifying it. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess justifying it, but like again, Destiny and Mystique are shrewd. They are, common sense driven. They do what's got to be done, even when it's ugly, and that's kind of what this is. And I love that it's framed as like this flirtation between the two of them. Just everything about this issue.
I like that it really shows how much Destiny has changed over the course of her very long life as well, because we see early in the issue Destiny doing these horrific things that shock you and Mystique, even at that time in 1943 in Alamogordo. But like, she's experimenting on mutant children. She's doing things that seem awful because she already has the vision of Krakoa. And she says, Sinister and we don't agree on anything but one thing, that mutants are important, and we are ultimately on the same side. Finishing this issue out with her beating the shit out of Sinister as a young woman and saying, I will never be on the same side with men like you. It's just like, it's historical irony in the pages of one single X book, which is really a feat to pull off. But it's a real tragedy of an issue in reverse. The train wreck of watching the things that they'll do in order to get that promised future. And it shows the limits of Destiny's precognition, right? There's things that she doesn't know until later.
Well, and it's such a beautiful irony that you raise there, that Sinister has the longer view and understands that mutants need to come together, and Destiny in her youth and in her anger is like, absolutely not. This will never happen. I will never compromise on this. And it's the irony that she's the one with the power to see, but it's Sinister who really has the clarity of vision in that moment is delicious. It's a delicious irony.
The idea
who
that
seems like an absolute madman. I'm just sorry. I'm just imagining somebody hearing about Charles Babbage's calculator.
You gotta specify which Charles. Charles Babbage, Charles Darwin. Like that was a great beat. The will I ever be rid of obnoxious Charles?
No.
Unfortunately, no. But no.
I'm just imagining.
I don't think he had the long vision. I don't think he had the long vision. He keeps going back to the Egyptian. The Egyptian gave him these gifts. The Egyptians gave him all of this knowledge and everything. Like, it wasn't that he had the long vision. It's that Apocalypse had the long vision and gave him that long vision by giving him the gifts that he gave him, that influx of mutant power. And he's like, oh, I get it. We got to race towards the future. And of course, this is it's an old Apocalypse, but it's an older version of Apocalypse who had a very narrow vision for how to make sure that mutants made it into the future. So like, he was still kind of very twisted, old school, if you're not with me, we're just going to slaughter you anyways kind of Apocalypse. So I don't necessarily think it was Sinister's own vision. I think it was Sinister's vision, but routed through Apocalypse's lens.
Interesting.
Wait, are you saying a white person found success by copying the works of a person of color who came before him?
I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
It's one of the really unfortunate things about Apocalypse being gone is that for so long, he and Sinister were not, I don't want to say synonymous, but they were inextricably linked. And Sinister's plans were always to thwart Apocalypse or doing something to help Apocalypse because he was under threat, whatever the reason. And you're right. It's because it was Apocalypse's vision, because Apocalypse, and it's a bit of a retcon, but it still continues to make sense that Apocalypse kind of knew what we were striving for and knew what we had lost and knew what we wanted to get back. And now that we have it, the fact that Sinister has other things in motion, I would be so excited to know what Apocalypse thinks about those things, if he would be impressed in some capacity or if he would just shut it all down. And they never got to have that moment of remember all of the times that we were dealing with each other constantly.
Well, and it really makes you wonder where else Apocalypse was sort of seeding the idea of Krakoa, of mutant dominance. He even in the era of Krakoa, he was moving around doing secret shit. Like he planted the Siege Perilous and Otherworld, and we didn't see that until we got into Knights of X.
Yeah.
He boosted Sinister and gave him this vision for what a mutant world could look like. At some point, Coven Akaba was something that he must have started. Clan Akaba. I'm kind of been wondering, reading this and thinking a lot about Mystique and her kind of mysterious origins. What if Mystique was some distant offspring of Apocalypse and also had that sort of vision for Krakoa just sort of built into her as and was like an agent for that? I mean, like, she's blue, she's a shapeshifter, she loves a skull motif, like
she's brilliant, she's a tactician, people follow her. If she walked in and was like, my name is Raven Akaba, I would be like, yes it is, sweetheart, right? Yes it is.
Apocalypse, for as strong as he is not stronger than, why do we keep forgetting her, Genesis. I would see Raven Darkholmes as more of a spin-off or an offshoot genetically from Genesis than from Apocalypse.
Oh, well, they can
because she's got such a singular focus and such a slow snake of a tactical mind. I'm like, that seems like Genesis to me. Because Genesis was never off the handle. She was slow, methodical. She thought so many centuries into the future, and she's like, I love you, honey, and you're my husband and everything, but you are the weakest among us. Yeah. You don't have the vision that you actually need to get where we need to go. You need to stay here and like learn some shit. We're gonna go do important adult shit over here. Like, to me, that's Raven Darkholmes, because even though she doesn't know everything Destiny knows, she's like, I understand that you know more than me. I'm going to follow that river ever so slowly and trust that you know what you're doing, because you
throw a baby in
that you know what I'm doing.
Throw a baby in.
I'll say this. I'll say Yeetus the fetus. I'll say this. I love that Apocalypse. This is the second time in this series, and we're only on issue 8, where Apocalypse looms in the background, right? He's also like a key figure in the origin of Exodus, another favorite of mine. So I love that Apocalypse, we haven't even seen him in print or in a story like in a hot minute. But his legacy, his shadow still looms over us. And I love that in this issue, we get, again, going back to Alamogordo and teasing out the Black Womb Project a little bit. It's almost like Destiny and Mystique, they played as big of a role in the lines, and they listed here, of Xavier, Marco. Hello. Now we can maybe hopefully kind of retcon Juggernaut into a mutant. Latent mutant gene.
Uncle Kane.
Riker. I'm ready for that guy to come back.
Sinister just put himself into these people. Sinister is not a mutant, especially at this point.
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind. He's a human.
Well,
he's not human yet.
No, he isn't.
Yes, and with him like losing it in this issue and like talking and like sounding like he should be institutionalized, like just stream of consciousness, like all the words can't come out fast enough, kind of thing. It kind of, and then him talking about how he like expunged his weakness of his sorrow for his dead wife, and he's since removed those weaknesses from his personality. Like, when you consider all the different versions of Sinister that we've seen and all his like affectations and all his, it kind of goes back to the whole thing of him like purging all his like personalities and like going back to like Sinister Prime. It makes you just wonder, like, what's really at the core of Sinister that isn't just him pantomiming how he thinks a scary villain should be, or a campy villain, or a Victorian era obsessed villain, or whatever.
He's like doing live eugenics on himself.
I think his madness though makes sense. Like the way he speaks today, that kind of over the top mustache twirling villainy, that is at least to me, it makes sense now. It's like, oh, you were driven more than just slightly mad. You were driven off the fucking rails, and you just kept extracting pieces of humanity from yourself till all that was left was madness. So your madness has been compacted and formed into your personality. It's not that he's happy and mustache twirling. It's that he is not mentally balanced up there. He's off his frickin' rocker. And but it's solidified into a blade, which makes it terrifying.
I mean, like, honestly, like, I feel like the reveal at the end with the 4 cloning vats, like, I feel like he was able to separate elements of his personality that he talked about as his monstrous personality into these 4 different beings. So I know we've confirmed seeing 2 of them. I'm pretty sure we've seen at least the 3rd one.
I'm 100% sure.
I'm 100. Like,
ooh, what's your theory? Who?
Like,
right,
and we'll get it as we get into that.
Yeah. X-Men Red.
Yes,
but
he's got a great theory.
Are we going to get into that?
Yeah.
So,
I've been
like,
beating this drum on Twitter.
Mr. Scavenger Hunt.
Yeah. So, like, and the 4th one, I could be, and I have no clues to this, like, no proof, but I think it's somebody like Mother Righteous, right? Like the 4th one. Yeah, like the 3rd one.
Say that on Twitter, and it stayed in my head too. Like, that would be a really cool flip.
Yeah,
and that's
could be the love one.
Why her skin's
really
red and she
accentuates
with white.
He talks about like looking into the supernatural and the beyond and psychical stuff, and like the hint that there's a sinister out there who's focused on like deities and beyond in the astral realm.
Yeah, and the Apocalypse machinations on Essex obviously turned him into a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. So like it really makes sense that these 4 different clones versions of himself would have 4 different types of personalities.
It's just Vincent Valentine.
Dr. Jekyll and Sherlock Holmes at the same time.
Ooh, what if Age of Sinister is basically like the Sinister Wars, and it's like these different...
Oh my god, that would be very well could be. Very well could be.
I can't wait to see what happens. It's just so cool that like Sinister's like becomes such a big character. And I love how, you know, Nico touched on this, like, you know, different series had got more out of the recent crossover with Judgment Day. I think Immortal X-Men's done such a good job consistently of like weaving in and out of bigger stories, while staying true to like what's going on within itself.
And I like that we're covering Immortal X-Men 8 and X-Men Red 8 together, because I think out of the X office, like, there's certain writers that play very well with each other, and I think Ewan and Gillen play really, really well with each other, and they play off each other. As we go into X-Men 8, right? So I mean, I'm sorry, X-Men Red 8. As we go into X-Men Red number 8, where our opening page is where, bam, we've got a Legion of X character right there, and we're like, what book is this? Like, wait, did I pick up the right book? You know, so you go into, you know, Weaponless Zen right then and there. You go into more of the sisterhood between her and Cora, and then we jump right into the Abigail brand of it. That data page at the end had me like jaw on the floor. Like, I was like, oh, she knew it all along.
Fucking pissed me off.
Right? And it's amazing too to see how
she was behind all of that.
Everything. Literally everything.
Like, it's amazing to see these 2 books that have these 2 women who have long-standingly been trying to pull the strings on everything, whereas Destiny has been, before Moira was born, even trying to set things up to where Krakoa could flourish. And it's really, I really wonder how that works with her power with Moira's reboots. Like, does it like go back in time, and does she like see the future based off of what the current reboot is? Like, that's an interesting like thought, right?
Well, and they're both with blue manipulators.
Yeah, and they're both master manipulators.
Well, no, they're both with blue manipulators.
Yeah.
Like Destiny is with Mystique, and
I mean,
Beast. I mean,
that's such a different kind of relationship, though. Mystique and Destiny is Destiny.
Yeah,
But Beast and
that's
Abigail
the-
Brand
Most
is
gorgeous
filthy.
sapphic
It's
relationship I've ever
disgustingly
seen.
filthy.
I think Beast and Brand really deserve each other.
Oh yeah.
They do.
100%.
That's the damn truth.
They
I-
deserve each
because
other,
you don't
but
like
we
it.
don't deserve
not right.
them.
No, we don't
yes.
need
Oh,
them.
completely.
We don't
Raven.
claim them.
Completely.
I
agree,
just I
Raven.
love that, like, I mean, not to go back to the mystique and destiny of it all, but like
Mhm.
after literal decades of it just being subtext and just I don't know, like you kind of read into it, but it wasn't explicit, and they are literally my favorite, most in love couple of the Marvel universe at this point. Like they have a love that could burn the stars, and it's just so cool that that is
Probably
actually on paper now in the stories, and not just for like one panel they're kissing. No, they're married.
They are a married
It's
couple.
Gay ladies.
They are.
It's been
be gay,
shown.
do crimes, and get married.
Yeah.
Well, and it's been
Mystique
shown.
is
They're
ultimate
one of the
murdering.
few.
They're burning things down.
It's been shown though that they're one of the few like couples like that we see on page on panel that openly communicate, that actually trust each other, even when they're like, I don't know, but you know what? I trust you on this. I know that I should be mad at you because you're working on shit that is like eugenics and this is bad.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to trust that you have more vision. And like they're constantly communicating. They trust each other. They have intimate, tender moments together. They support each other. When Destiny came back, like Mystique took her and kept her in a safe space for months and just helped her with her mental issues and helped bring her up to speed and took care of her until she could like be a person again and be able to assert herself as a person again. Like I don't see that with a lot of other, pairs and couples that we really see on panel, but they have done it so beautifully between Mystique and Destiny. And that's why I'm just like, I'm here for them. I stand them. They can burn the universe to the ground. I don't care. I am with them.
I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think Destiny's resurrection has been the most pivotal and impactful mutant resurrected in the Krakoa era. Like the most they've done with any of the characters. I mean, and I'm thinking of others like Thunderbird, awesome. I don't know who else.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on how far back you take the resurrection protocol proper, because, like, to some extent, like, Proteus, I guess.
Proteus, pretty great.
And, putting him in an Xavier body, making the five.
But didn't Proteus come back in the last Astonishing before Krakoa, though?
Okay, yeah. It's, I don't not think Destiny is the most significant. I think she is. It's that so much of the plot was geared toward her resurrection for so long.
Yep.
If she wasn't the biggest resurrection, that would have been a folly.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
But you know who's got to get resurrected? Magneto.
Yeah.
He's dead.
Yeah, okay. But like, also Magneto, they're gonna save that. I mean, we know Magneto's gonna come back, right? Like,
White hot room.
I think he's gonna do it himself through the waiting room. If it
It's not like Charles Xavier would ever
I'm hoping
do
they
something that's like against Magneto's wishes or anyone else's, right? It's not like
Not like
Xavier would
Sinister have
ever
a
do
clone
something
somewhere.
without consent.
It's amazing that we all just named like 6 different ways that Magneto could come back.
I said no Magneto.
That's one of the ways. No,
I said Joseph because hey, who doesn't want a hot young Magneto thing for Chuck to play around with for a while?
Yeah, Joseph is the best way.
I love you so much for saying it.
I was
Jake.
like Arturo,
Yes.
like.
Well, I think
I'm not saying I want that. I'm just saying that's likely.
The fourth Mr. Sinister is actually going to be the 17th Doctor Who now that Disney has Doctor Who. And I think you're gonna,
it's just
and he's going to reverse the polarity of the neutron flow, and Magneto's just going to come back in a TARDIS. It's going to make a lot of sense at the time.
It does now.
Who do we
By
think
Fast
is
Spencer,
never mind the
no,
TARDIS. Who's in the Stellaris?
Okay, wait. All right, so Steve, tell me your theory on Orbis Stellaris.
Orbis Stellaris is Mr. Sinister. He is the spade Mr. Sinister. That is 100% guaranteed. I guarantee it. It's like, I have been saying this for a while because I've been completely sure about it, but like, let's review the facts. He's 189 years old. He's from Earth. He is male. He is a person who is invested in creating like robot cyborg clones who are basically the Marauders, the original Marauders, but cyborgs instead of mutants. Yep. He traffics in selling like clone weaponry. That's his big thing. He's one of the biggest roboticists and geneticists out in the Outer Rim, which who knows how he got there. But Sinister in Immortal X-Men number 8 literally says like they're trying to shoot a bullet to the moon. Think about all the things we could do out there. Are there other worlds where they've beaten the AI? And there are, and Orbistolars will find them. There's so many things here, but like first and foremost among them is the fact that he like is obsessed with the Summers brothers. He's sucked out Cable's viral load. He did that whole thing, and he's been experimenting with it. He's been fucking around with Vulcan's mind through the alien Dracula's puppets. The whole progenitor stage attack thing, the whole working with Abigail Brand, which is an obvious no-brainer. His destabilization of the Shi'ar Empire is terrifying and adds to the sense. The fact that he was vehemently opposed to the idea of an immortal mutant dictator on the Shi'ar throne, I feel like is also a shining example here. But there is like page after page after page of things from Sword through all of X-Men Red that point to Orbistolars being Mr. Sinister, and specifically the Spade one, which I think the final evidence comes from the solicit for X-Men Red number 10, where it says, you know, Sinister plays his final hand and it's the Ace of Spades or something like that. But like, I am so glad that this is finally not yet confirmed, but it has been driving me insane for like 3 months.
Now,
Steve, I had to get that all out there.
You've got a whole body of evidence, and I would never, after all that, I wouldn't say you're wrong, but TK has had an interesting pet theory for a while, and I really want him to just share it as a counterpoint.
I think it's Catherine Ann Summers. I think it should be Catherine Ann Summers.
Now, for the folks at home, who is Catherine Ann Summers, TK?
It is Cyclops, Havoc, and Vulcan's mom, Corsair's wife.
I think that'd be really fun.
She was in space. She was a concubine to D'Ken. We can skip that part. But you know, I mean, she is from Earth. She's just one of those characters who I feel like Steve's evidence is much more compelling. She's one of those characters that somebody could and should bring back.
Yeah, should.
She deserves to have a story that is not being the concubine of D'Ken. She kind of got fridged, and she deserves something better than that. Yeah, it's really bad.
I hate the idea of her like having like done that shit to her son. Like,
well, also she's not like 189 years old, but like, you know.
Hey, time dilation is a crazy thing.
True.
She could be though. Yeah, she could be 189, and we just didn't see it. And like,
I was a mutant all along.
Yeah, and it would also give Vulcan connection to Sinister, which I kind of need, because the fact that he's D'Ken, who I think should change his name to Faang, the fact that he's D'Ken's child instead makes him not part of like the Corsair crew. So I would love it if Catherine was just like, hey, I'm Mr. Sinister, and after I disappeared in space, I became a giant eye. And I think you could both be right. I don't see one of you has to be wrong.
There is this whole idea, this theory that 2 of the Sinisters are women has really been bopping around in my head, because if Mother Righteous is a Sinister, now what if Catherine Ann Summers actually was a Sinister? Like, actually.
And it's not that Sinister is obsessed with the Summers family, but the Sinister is part of the Summers family, and therefore is taking care of family.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, there you go.
No,
like,
it's good
on
icky.
purpose.
It's good icky, but it's icky.
Yeah. It's
but
icky.
It's good icky.
It's so icky.
He would bully his child.
This is all I could have hoped for from this.
It's definitely something he would do.
Yeah,
I think something we're forgetting is that there's not only 4 Sinisters. Like, we could absolutely be like, which Sinister is which member of these face cards, but there's a billion Sinisters.
Well, and now we have a Sinister on a Winter Council obsessed with Summer. I'm just saying there's little oh no, ow, no.
Wait, and let's tie it all back together
with the conspiracy theories.
Like Sinister's obsession with the Summers line going all the way back to like, actually he just had a real big crush on Corsair, and he like had to do all of this stuff just to like bed Corsair. That's kind of funny.
And then imagine if we take it like all the way full circle. Apocalypse's wife was named Genesis, and one of the names that Cable's son took when he was evil was Genesis.
And Phil Collins
was in Genesis.
I was gonna say that's probably has to do with Cable being raised in an apocalypse future where he knew Apocalypse's son and was like, "I would have named my son Genesis too."
Can you imagine? Because it also makes
Genesis.
Oh my god, that makes the Catherine thing make more sense, because then that means that if the child is named Nathan, it's sort of named after his grandmother.
But also, Sinister has had access to Summers' DNA since the further adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. There was a Summers in that mix, and there was this whole paradox, grandfather paradox question.
The one who changed his name to Summers after meeting Scott Summers.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
No,
Boy,
and
that is a roundabout way to go fuck yourself.
Now that's Sinister, right? Like the Further Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. That was the pre-split Sinister, right? Or is it the post-split Sinister?
Well, that Sinister still turned into a Diamond Sinister. So
yeah, he had the diamond before he created a clone of himself, also with the diamond. So
the order of operations is a little muddled.
Yeah.
Maybe. All right. Well, I mean, so it's his timeline. So
I'll be interested to see if Gillen touches that, because Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix and Further Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix is a big classic of the era, and it's absolutely something I could see him being interested in, leaving a little mark on and helping us tie some stuff together with all that he's doing.
Well, just that reference point of contact between Sinister and the Egyptian is referencing that specific story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So as we wrap this up, y'all, team, what is your final thoughts? I'm going to say on these two books, I am so amazingly interested in what these two are cooking up. Like Gillen and Ewing play so well off each other. Ewing doesn't get the credit for playing so well off of the other X writers that he does, because this team, the way he pulls things that are happening in current books, is amazing without a beat. He doesn't skip a beat. He everything's perfect. I hope. I'm team Orbis Stellaris is Sinister, but I also would love it to be Sinister and Catherine Ann Summers now, because that would be a really interesting mix.
Yeah, these books are really fantastic. They're very fun to follow. I think we do get a lot of the sort of moral gray area. Things are not perfect that I think you need in a story, but we have not gone into the X-Force zone of holy shit, that's so terrible. So, I really appreciate it. Cable in this issue just looks perfect, and that's all I need in this world. So, go forth.
Yeah, I want to say we didn't talk about it yet, but the artists on all three of the issues I'm here to talk about today, but especially these two, are new artists on the series, and they're all killing it. I think Michelle Bandini did a fantastic job of drawing the cutest little Mystique in a Deerstalker. And Cable looks hot as hell. Madibek Musabekov, which I'm sure I am mispronouncing, does a phenomenal fill-in on X-Men Red. I really like the style.
Sinister looks hot as hell too when he's doing his whole Vampire of London killing innocents thing. Damn.
I was like, ooh, Mr. Hyde, my ass.
I had met Nathaniel Essex, and now I met Mr. Sinister. I just want to give a shout out to Mystique for having the best line of the week. If we took time to correct all men, we would have time for nothing else. Just amazing. I love this so much. Between X-Men Red and Immortal X-Men, I think the X Office 8. Get it?
Yeah. So good having a bunch of bisexual men writing in the X Office.
Seriously.
A fun.
Well, not only that, I appreciate both of these issues because they really treat all of the characters with an even hand as how they present them. You can be sexy and still not be ooh, cheesecake. And I love the fact that they wrote such a beautiful sapphic love story and packed so much nuance into one book, and it's so gorgeous. And I love seeing things where female characters are actually nuanced, because there was a very long period in comic history where they really weren't. And now I get to see it, and it's pulling me back in and making me want to like read more and just I could sit and eat all day. Like, it's fantastic storytelling, and it's really lovely to see everybody get an even and fair shake on how they are treated as a character and how they are developed. It's so good. I love these books.
Mystique, the ultimate wife guy. Who knew?
I knew.
Jake, get us those final thoughts.
Well, so I love how Ewing is so collaborative with other books going, other space books. There was a great Marauders reference to the Kin Crimson, not King Crimson, Kin Crimson, and the ongoing storyline that Steve Orlando is telling. And just in general, I've been really loving how this is the X space book. You see how how Abigail Brand's machinations tie into what's going on in Kree space and Shi'ar space and Skrull space. And for the last few years, it's really felt like there is a mutant presence out in the galaxies, making themselves known for better or for worse in factional ways, even. And I'm so excited to see just continue that story and evolution of like the mutant nation in space, and Ewing is really the person to get us there. I love X-Men Red so much.
Yeah.
So much.
I love getting to continue to see the rise of like conceptual leaders of the X-Men, people who didn't necessarily hold the rank of leader of a group of mutants like Mystique or Storm, who have held that position at times and at other times haven't, really come into a position of leading the books, if not leading the titles. And that's just been the best thing. All right, I think we gotta force some X down now. It's time to go take a look at Beast. Jesus Christ.
No.
Oh, play the commercial.
Better you than me.
$100 billion.
Okay, well, TK, I do believe you are going to make us talk about this.
Yeah, I have the
Boo.
distinct opportunity to bring us together to discuss the darkest, most depressing X book that I think any of us have read in quite some time. Really lining up with Wolverine, which we discussed previously on the show, and the conversation went on for a really long time about how bad Beast has become and what went on there. And as we were going through this X-Force book, I thought maybe we're getting a break. He's busy torturing Logan, and what more can he do besides torture Logan? So we've got Beast on the ground doing the most insane, heinous micro torture to one person, while meanwhile he has started a prison moon.
That he stole $100 billion from just discretionary funds.
$100 billion prison moon. $100 billion prison moon. I'm so mad.
A prison moon, not only just a prison moon, but a prison moon where he's experimenting on people. Like what in the Yosef Mangala?
What in the age of apocalypse is going on here?
If you want to keep a thing a secret from Krakoa, I understand that you don't want people to know that you're complete, absolute monster, rivaling their worst villains they've ever fought. You are identical to one of their worst villains. If you want to keep that a secret, that's fine. Why would you tell Maverick? Why would you let Maverick?
And here's the big thing for me, right?
So fast.
Who the fuck is Maverick? I went through and I did one of my Nico look at all the appearances, blah blah blah, and through the course of doing a bunch of things for the show, I've read most Maverick. Let's say not all of it, but who the fuck is Maverick to Beast? Every now and then we get these situations where people are like, yeah, you can totally see where this is coming from because these are both things happening in my book at the same time, and I'm like, oh, but I don't. Okay, first of all, Beast doesn't trust anybody. Second of all, Maverick sells everybody out the first chance he gets. Right? Third of all, it's not discretionary income if you tell a guy who's famous for trying to steal money about something. This was you can't tell me Beast is a $100 billion prison colony smart. You can't tell me he's Hojo of Shinra, but then also tell me he's Dr. Doofenshmirtz of Doofenshmirtz Incorporated.
It feels like they were let's see, what is a really archetype? Let's say the bad guy from Inspector Gadget. What would he do to let's make Beast? Yeah, what would Dr. Claw do? Let's make Beast do that. I really want to see Beast just stroking the cat now on his lap. I'm going to get that sage.
He does that in Wolverine, but the thing he's stroking is Logan's metal skull.
Yeah, it's dark times. It's dark times.
I guess one of my big questions is we've gone too dark, right? This is too much.
Yeah.
I was just saying to Nathan earlier today that reading through this issue in particular, the darkness of what Beast keeps doing, but also how Sage just has a Wolverine monologue throughout this entire issue. Sage it's copy pasted Wolverine stuff onto Sage stuff, and you can read it all in Wolverine's voice, and it sounds exactly the same.
It does.
I'm starting to wonder, we're hundreds of issues in, I think, at this point to the Percy run, if we're counting everything that he's done. But I don't know, maybe 800, maybe less. But it just feels like he doesn't really care about accountability or know what it really means, because it feels like the characters are accountable when they're punishing themselves. It feels like the characters do worse and worse things, and then they're like, oh, I have to punish myself worse and worse for these things. But absolutely nobody ever faces any kind of anything from anybody else. Jean Grey quits the team because she can't deal with holding her friend accountable or standing up to him. Sage made motions towards standing up to Beast early on, but now she's just covering up for his crimes and complicit in them. And she's just I just got to punish myself by drinking all the time so I can forget that I'm doing all these terrible things. And it's okay, but is anybody at any point ever gonna be have somebody else punish them for what they're doing and them have to just accept that? Because it seems at this point that it's Beast is well, I'll punish myself later, I'll be history's greatest villain. Sage is well, I'll just drink myself to death. Wolverine's well, I can take it. but I've gotten to a point where it's like none of these characters is ever actually going to face consequences. They just
but like
not unless
they're not apologetic.
What?
They're not apologetic. That's the problem. They're not sorry. They're regretful that they're going to get in trouble.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. Which is
they're not
fine,
sorry.
Are they going to get in trouble? Is the trouble?
I need them to.
It has to. Otherwise, this run will feel like the most unsatisfying X-Force run I've ever read, to be honest. And I loved this run when it started, and I do like a lot of it still. But it's just like the Domino story, the way that Domino's story was treated is infuriating to me. It's the biggest drop plot thread in the Krakoan era, and it makes me think that we're not going to see consequences.
Number 2 is Colossus, dropped, kind of hasn't gone anywhere.
It's up
he
to
got put on,
but it's not up to Percy, and that's still a problem, right?
But I mean, like, it's one of those things where, like, I love when writers trade off plots, but like, I need them to trade off plots like the plot is going to get paid off.
Agreed.
And like, I feel like what Gillen is going to do with Colossus, Gillen has proven he is willing to acknowledge even a single panel of canon if it's real good. I feel like he's going to pay off some other stuff for Colossus, and I feel like the nature of this X-Force run could even be summed up in, well, kid, that's life, snicked. But like,
unfortunate.
But fucking fit. Like, this is why I can't do all reality programming, because like you can write a good ending, but producers have more trouble manipulating humans into the ending they want without facing legal problems later on. And so I can't get a satisfying conclusion from most reality programming. And I didn't think that that's the nature of this comic book. I didn't think I was going to be told, kid, that's life. Some plots just don't resolve.
Yeah.
Okay, but like Quentin Quire, what's going on with him?
He's just right. Dead, except for when he was alive in Judgment Day, when we saw him get killed on panel, whatever. That's who cares. I don't know.
He's an Omega. That's like the most important resource in Krakoa. Like that should be like
the only thing I'll say is leave it, because I would rather somebody else get Quentin later.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, at
true.
this point, I agree. Quentin's had some really interesting development in this series, but it doesn't feel like there's plans to go anywhere more with it.
And I think we have too much to do to hope that we could bring him back in this book and have it be anything good. Like the
coolest part of the flight should never be the runway.
I think you guys are right about the consequences. I do think we will see them. I think it will be kind of rushed towards the end. But I guess one of my other questions is, like, are there any consequences for Beast now that, like, this character is unsalvageable for the rest of time?
Well, his consequences would be being treated as such by the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
Like,
which I think will eventually happen. I think it will eventually happen. I guess my question is, like, isn't that, like, that's a big choice to make this? He's completely irredeemable, or it's Dark Beast, and then it's just kind of a cop-out plot.
I was like, you can't have him be completely
sorry, I was gonna say it can't be Dark Beast. It just doesn't work.
But that's the only way. That's the only way it works. Like, because comics is so cyclical. Like, you people have to go back to their status quo like 20 years ago. That's like always the way comic is, and like that's the only way you can even do that with Beast is by retconning it having been Dark Beast.
Like, I think that's the least satisfying way to do it.
True, I agree.
Killing him and bringing him back as an earlier backup.
There is another option, or we can just recognize that sometimes people's ideology changes over time as they see more and more shit thrown at them. And instead of being Dark Beast, which was just a really easy way to go dark and evil with him real quick, this has just been a progression of shit getting worse and worse, and him absolutely just losing hope and losing control and just going, I can fix this. I can fix this. I can fix this. I can fucking fix. I can fucking fix. You know, I'm going to fix this whether other people like it or not. And this is just his natural progression into what Dark Beast would have been. So instead of, just slinging him into Dark Beast, it's just been that slow march into his own dark world. And we're just going, this isn't Dark Beast. This is his progression into darkness.
Yeah. It's hard to relitigate this, but like it's not actually like comics are always cyclical. Sometimes characters do change alignment and stay that way. Magneto is a hero. Whether or not he does bad things every once in a while, he is and has been for like 40 years now. on the whole, mostly heroic. You know, he's an anti-hero occasionally, and sometimes he's an antagonist, but he's not a villain anymore. And the same is true of Maddie Pryor in the opposite way. Maddie Pryor is no longer the hero that she was. She may do heroic things every once in a while, but she chose villainy, and she chose to be that kind of character. Beast started making choices like that, if we're honest, in the 70s, but definitely in the 90s, and more so in the 2000s. It's been a long crawl, like Raven said, and I don't think Beast ever has to go back to being a good character who is a good person. I just think the fans want that.
Yeah.
And,
I see, but
with
with X-Men 97, I know there's a lot of like synergy between like the the live action and animated properties in the book. So like I'm like, okay, cool. Like unless they like take Beast and have him be like super like villainous now, like I always see people trying to bring him back to the X-Men 92 version.
Yes, because that's everybody's most beloved form of Beast, right? They're always going to be trying to do that. They're always going to be trying to put the Mohawk back on Storm.
And I think part of the problem with Dark Beast versus this Beast being Dark Beast is Dark Beast was an immoral creature. Well, no, it's hard to even like Dark Beast knew he was immoral. He knew he was immoral and he was fine with it, right? Whereas this Beast is like, my immorality is not the problem. I think he thinks that his immorality isn't the problem. Like, he thinks that this is for the betterment of things. Dark Beast was like, sick pleasure, ha ha ha. But this Beast wraps himself in justice, and that makes what he does to me, like, diametrically different than Dark Beast. Because Dark Beast doesn't have any illusions that he's living by. This Beast lives in the illusion that he's still doing something for anyone else. And when you're looking at the core of a person, like viral selfishness, this guy is pure evil at this point. Whereas Dark Beast, I mean, like Dark Beast wasn't not pure evil, but Dark Beast wasn't pure evil that pretended he wasn't. And when you believe you're righteous, you're a different kind of frightening.
See, but I think Dark Beast believed he thought was righteous too, and that reality.
No. Dark Beast thought he was right because he thought his worldview was right. Yeah. And he liked being dark. He liked that evil. He leaned into it and took pleasure from it. This current Beast that we have, I don't think he thinks he's immoral. I think he thinks he is right, and that even though his morals are complicated, that they are the right ones. And that's what's terrifying, because he's going to slowly try and impose that sense of morality or those parameters of morality on other people, and he's going to defend himself. Well, you just don't quite understand where I'm going with this. You don't quite understand where I'm coming from, because I have a deeper knowledge of what's going on. And it's like, we've heard these kind of people before, and they turn to fascists real quick, real quick. And we already saw him do a little bit of that with Terra Verde.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Dark Beast under the? Wasn't he huffing too much Sublime, and that's what turned him into that?
That's a different Beast. That's Beast.
That's a different Dark Beast that I'm thinking of.
No, that's the Beast from the end of Here Comes Tomorrow. It's just that. Yeah, I don't know. Making Beast Dark Beast would be the biggest cop out on the level of like retconning the Scarlet Witch not to having been Magneto's daughter, or various other really bad retcons that people have done, if only because it takes this entire story about somebody doing worse and worse things for the greater good as they sell it to themselves. Basically, somebody re-evolving the CIA out of nothing in a paradise, which is like honestly one of the worst crimes Beast has ever done, is just from the beginning. And it's something that is telling an important story about what good people can do when those good people are obsessed with thinking they are the only person who can be trusted with the power and the information to do the right thing. It is the centrism of fascism right there. Like, it's the central post of fascism that lifts that up, is the idea that there needs to be somebody who makes these choices for somebody else, and that person should be me. And it just to take that away and to make that have always been an evil character hiding as him is the dumbest fucking thing I could think of to write a comic book. And I think Ben Percy, for all his flaws, is a better writer than that. Yeah. I think he's telling a story about Beast becoming our universe in the way that Dark Beast became Dark Beast under the Apocalypse universe.
I think you are correct. I hope you are correct. It just, My one concern is just that they're going to need this character again at some point. That said, we are coming to the end of our time for this particular segment, so I want to give everybody a chance to do final thoughts. We're going to go left to right, top to bottom. So I will start and just say, yeah, I mean, we really just summed it up. I feel like they need Beast as a property, and he can't be used the way he is now. And so I just don't know how they're going to get out of that. And it haunts me as I read this book. I think the rest of the really dark stuff is very cool. It's just a lot. And again, I just have a lot of questions about where the end of this track is.
I would just say, one, Beast and Brand, they're just peas in the same pod. They deserve each other. Like, just fuck it. Like, put them together. Let them get married. Let them be evil, gatekeep, girl boss, gaslight, whatever. All right. And two, like, it worries me a little bit. I'm not sure that I trust Percy to handle a Sage alcoholism story with the subtlety that it deserves and the nuance that it deserves. We've seen it before with other heroes with varying different degrees of success, and those always make me nervous because, God, that's a lot of stuff to put in a story, and I hope he's up to it.
You know, I think the big takeaway from this book for me is that this is a bunch of like just under A-listers at this point. It's a lot of like, we can coast a book on a bunch of these people, but every one of them is someone's favorite, and absolutely none of them are being treated like anyone's favorite right now.
No.
They're all playing like the and someone in someone else's book, but there is no main character to root for here.
It's Beast.
You didn't watch House of Cards or Breaking Bad or any of the, all humanity is dark pointlessness shows because you thought these guys have figured it out. And that's what I'm being handed here. So it's maybe not working for me the way it was 20 issues ago.
I think our surprise protagonist, the person we're meant to be rooting for, is Omega Red, because surprisingly he has the least amount of blood in his hands and has done the least bad comparatively to his other teammates.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
And that's fine with me. My biggest takeaway is that we're getting into cartoonish villainry from Beast, where he's stealing a very large sum of money and nobody notices, and he has this big old prison, but nobody else is a cartoonish villain. This is meant to be a very serious, gritty book, and we're doing things that we're talking about accountability. I am having a lack of believability that Beast can get away with any of this, and that nobody is noticing. It just feels a little too much that you're asking for a lot of disbelief from me. Even this high fantasy superhero comic that I don't know if I can give at this point, because it feels like we're just giving too much leeway. And we were talking about it before. I think if they're going to keep Beast, my personal opinion of the two ways that this only works is that they do a Cassandra Nova and he gets resurrected and they take out the evil part of him and he just becomes super nice and compassionate. Or we go way back and we just do the oldest backup they have of when Beast was first introduced way back when, in like, what was it, 1940s? And he's not even blue anymore. He's just a big old human.
63.
That's the last time he was a good guy.
And way back in the 60s, 40s.
Like
60s,
40s baby. I like 40s infant Hank.
Yeah. He's not blue anymore. He's just a big old gymnast with big feet, and he has like red hair. That's just the part we're going back to. We're gonna like raise him again from a child.
The college football player Hank. I love it.
Yes. Also, better treatment of Sage.
Rayman, it's your turn.
This, God, I hate it when I have to be brutal. But let's get into it. This feels like it was written as an improv exercise, like a one-sentence yes and story, and it doesn't work for me because it's a lot of the yes and. It's like somebody tried to, here, we're gonna stop the story here, or we're gonna make this point, and then the next person is like, no, we can't do that, we have to keep the story going, so let's diverge off this way and this way and this way. And I'm just like, 100 billion, 100, like I could almost understand 100 million with the amount of money that Emma and Madripoor and everything is bringing in, but 100 billion? How fucking drunk was Sage to okay that? Was she like neck deep in her 7th, 5th of Everclear to okay that bullshit? I'm sorry, what the fuck?
That is like church payoff money.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just like, this is.
There's one couch in Krakoa that all the mutants sit in, and that's where they got their
And like, you get the believability of like, okay, you don't know what he's spending it on, but where did he come from? Who did he take it from that nobody said anything?
I have the same
mutant
question.
named
Where
Mint
is there $100 billion US to
Right?
get?
Mint.
Where-
This
where
mutant
is that line
that can
around?
make mint. They make mint flavored money, and they just print it
mint
all
flavored
day.
money. I want mint flavored money, but
Mint.
oh
My God.
is it like you suck on the money, or is it like does it dissolve in your mouth? But then it's
You
gone.
like,
Right.
you just
I
You
want
just
I
put the
want
money to your
love
nose and breathe.
X-Force. I want to love this, and at the
We're
same point, in
snorting
time,
mint flavored money
there's-
now.
it's so hard to like suspend disbelief. Like I could believe in mint flavored money more than that 100 billion. Just
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna check off on that. Like no,
That
like,
is tough.
it's too far of a leap. Like we have a mutant who can turn 8 ounces of anything into chocolate. I can get behind that. I could understand mint flavored fucking money, and that's how you follow the cup. It smells like mint. I think we know who made this. Okay, we can understand that.
Who built the moon? Like
Right? Like, but who
Box?
transported all the materials there, built the damn thing, staffs the damn thing, and nobody said shit? What?
No other
What?
nation with
I'm sorry,
space
no.
reconnaissance is like, hey, there's something else up here. Who's
there's
this?
a moon.
Oh.
There's a moon. You can see it on telescopes.
I'm gonna pivot to Steve.
Yeah, we got to wrap
I'm gonna
up.
pivot us to
Thank you.
Steve.
That's
Sorry, we
fair.
gotta
That's
wrap
fair.
up. I have just 2 brief things to say, and one is that the only way this works narratively for me, I think the only way that it actually works as a story is to make the breaking point is Beast has to make the transition to on-page supervillainy, like recognized by other characters. Other characters need to look at Beast and go, oh, he's one of the supervillains on the X-Men, like Mr. Sinister, Apocalypse, etc. People have to see Beast in the universe as an antagonist in the same way that in the Battle of the Atom Future, he was a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. We need to see Beast fully be recognized as the supervillain member of Krakoa that he is, as opposed to a hero. And that's the only thing that can save this run, I think, in my opinion. The other thing is that Chris Allen does a phenomenal job. This is his first issue on an X-Men comic, as far as I know, and he's one of the new Stormbreakers, and the art looks so good. Maverick looks hot, which is hard to pull off. The costume Maverick has looks great. It doesn't look like it's smashing his nose. It actually looks really fucking cool. Everything in this is really well designed. I love it. I think Sage looks gorgeous.
Thanks,
Domino
guys.
as well.
This was a
Amazing.
great discussion about a horrible topic.
To the commercial before Beast gets
Yes.
us.
So sorry that it had
No, Well, ladies and gentlemen, and our amazing non-binary listeners, and that's a phrase I'm going to work out of my vocabulary. Welcome back, everybody. Appropriate language for on-air live activities. We are here now to discuss two mini-series events that I have personally a little bit of trouble with, in part because I'm not sure exactly why they're here. Like, not in an attacking way, but I know that this show, because every single person on the show is a very forward-minded thinking person, likes to look at, the advancements in comics. Maybe Infinity Comics aren't everybody's thing, but Infinity Comics have really been a valuable part of the Marvel oeuvre in the last 2 years, post-pandemic life beginning. And because it's never post-pandemic again, it's just post-pandemic changes, right? And Gambit 1 through 5 and Patch 1 through 5 represent, for me, Chris Claremont and Larry Hama, two experts of industry going back, 40 years each. This, for me, was two people writing two versions of two characters alongside two versions of their side characters that just don't exist anymore. And they even tell us where these go. The Wolverine arc goes before Wolverine 31, which places it around 1992. And the X-Men arc goes before X-Men 267, which places it in 1990. But for me, as much as I thought these were fine, I would have liked them a lot more if they were 40 pages on Marvel Unlimited or 40-page one-shots. And that's sort of my starting point for all of this. I would love to get your guys' thoughts on going back to these eras with these writers and these characters to get us going.
So, like, there's a point you have to be really careful of with these we're gonna fill in old story miniseries. Like Gambit was the point of that series to show that, like, the Age of Apocalypse Gambit, like, really would have fallen in love with Lila Cheney, because, like, I don't see any point other than that. And you really have to be careful with continuity. There's a point in issue 5 of Gambit where Lila is at at her concert, and she somebody throws her mic, and she says, "Thanks, Allison." Okay, so, like, if that's supposed to be Dazzler, she's in the outback in Australia and dead at that point in time, or
beyond the grave.
So, like, because, like, she's got the same outfit, she's got the dark hair that Allison wore in the band, and she's got, like, the little star earring. So I'm like, I guess that's supposed to be Dazzler, but there's no way any of that makes sense. So, like, you just got to be really careful when you're playing with old continuity like that, because there can be some really jarring points that are like, that couldn't happen like that.
And Chris Claremont really loves to tell how I would have done it stories. He loves to follow up on his run. And one of the things we have realized is that it no longer really works to allow that to be part of main continuity. Just life changes. Other writers write things. We require a different degree of flexibility from writers. And these are not things that Claremont is here for. And I love him as he is. It just no longer can he come in and write mainline continuity. So our two options are separate continuity, him telling his own stories, what would have happened, what could have happened, or we give him these little slices where we say, like, you cannot change anything, but you can tell a story in a time that you want, as long as it doesn't affect, as long as you don't make any changes to a character that would be really significant. And I guess I have so much respect for the guy. I get why the company would and would allow these things. Nothing is bad, but I think that, you do kind of miss. I think they're probably constantly looking for, like, you can't say that because that would mean that Gambit was this type of person now, and we can't allow it. Yeah. And what happens is you miss things like, I just want to throw in a quick reference to Dazzler, and nobody is really sitting around checking that works, because while that doesn't affect anything, it is a change that a fan would notice.
Right.
But
it's his own continuity too. That's the worst.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, I love the Hama one a little bit more because I felt that it had fewer of those things and was, you know, I thought it was a more plausible Wolverine story that kind of could have happened at any time.
And this was kind of hot.
Correct. The Storm and Gambit one, yeah, it just like it feels more like it really should be an alternate continuity story. And the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, I just don't understand what the intention is here and why it's not something like an Infinity comic.
With anything, and I've learned something that you realize when you're in the sci-fi genre and as a whole, alternate history is not a very popular genre. It's really hard to come up with ideas that still make sense with where you're diverging your point, unless you're diverging your point really, really early, or really, really close to where your time takes place. So when you go back and you do these kind of fill-in stories, I think there's a lot of trickery and a lot of pitfalls I think a lot of writers can kind of fall into, where you can't change a lot, you can't make too many references, because one reference, one mistake, one saying anything can technically cause this idea of, well, that wouldn't happen, this would change so much about everything, this would change too much. So I don't mind these idea of fill-in stories, especially if there's like a large enough gap where you can kind of put in something like this, whether it's the Gambit or the Patch story. But it does feel like, okay, you really need to be a lot more careful than you would say, like TK was saying, make it an alternate continuity where you don't have to think about too much of what's going on, because you're making your own separate story, all your rules, all your history, whatever you want to do, you can do whatever. I like the idea of doing these slot in issues, but these two particular stories for me, I think both fell short in the sense of they're trying to do these setups that I don't think had any actual payoff. I don't really know what was the point of these stories, because again, you can't really change much and you can't have these big lasting effects, because that changes too much of what's going currently on and it doesn't match. You have to try to make everything as consistent as possible. But these stories then don't feel like they hold a purpose, because there's nothing that actually happens.
Okay, what was the point of all of the backstory with Ashake and like the mother of Marissa, like the older doctor? Like, what was the point of all of that? Like,
to draw old lady titties like she was still in her 20s. That was the only point of that fucking thing.
Well, and you know, I really want to ask you, Raven, because I really appreciate that, you know, I am not a woman. I don't know what it means to be depicted that way. And for all of the being an ally, it doesn't really make a difference. I thought that some of what this book did was it underplayed the women in, like, it should have been called Gambit and Storm. It never should have been called Gambit. And in exchange, it utilized women as yonic magic symbols, and it made every woman sort of play either maiden, mother, or crone, and it made some women play multiple roles. And I just felt like women were really treated unusually like chattel in this book, and I just didn't know if that was like me being oversensitive and I just don't see that all comics do this 24/7, or if this really did like have a lot of the women are accessories for men vibe.
Would you like me to give you my opinion on these two?
Oh, desperate.
Unholy fuck, we went back 40 years. And it wasn't, oh, we're going back in 40 years and doing it in a good way with a slightly updated vocabulary and slightly updated tropes. No, you went all the fucking way back to 40 years ago, where women were there to be pretty, there to be cheesecake. I saw so many angled shots, angled perspectives of women that were just boobs. Look at these boobs. I'm wearing spandex for a fucking reason. I actually am. I'm wearing this particular catsuit for a fucking reason. This is how spandex acts on a regular ass body. They were using it to, hey, look, I got boobs. Boobs? Would you like some boobs? There's some boobs. Oh, look, here's some butt shot. Let me give you some more butt shot. Can we get you some butt and boobs? Oh, hey, can we have the 60-plus-year-old woman look like she's got 20-year-old tits? And look at the butt, because when you're older, you're also sexy. But hey, we've got this sexy Marine where we're always going to be wearing skin-tight shit. And yeah, she can really fight, but let me go ahead and fridge her ass at the end. Are you fucking kidding me with some of this bullshit? And don't even get me started on Patch, which I'm just like, please don't be a hate crime. Please don't be a microaggression. Please don't be racist. Please don't be racist. Please don't be racist. As you're murdering indigenous people wholesale for no fucking reason, with no fucking buildup, and they're just there, the happy porters, gonna bring you back to our village and make sure that we take care of you because you're the fucking main characters. Are you fucking me with this bullshit? I mean, those are just a few thoughts off the top of my head.
And not prepared at all, right?
No, not at all.
And that's exactly sort of my concern with some of this material. I actually felt that Larry Hama did a much finer job on his recent X-Men Legends story. I felt that Chris Claremont did a better job on X-Men New Mutants War Children a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. This felt to me like, number one, the whole point of the X-Men Legends line was have it all in one place, 2 to 3 issues at a time, no big fucking arcs, no big fucking multi-part stories. Mm-hmm. And instead of giving me what I thought I was promised, which was 48 pages to tell what really is an annual of story, I'm starting to get 120 pages to tell 5 issues at $4 a piece.
Yeah.
And it's $4 a piece when I'm lucky. Sometimes the first one is $4.99. So now I'm paying $25 to read what I thought I just read a press release that I could read in $8. And when the page count to dollar ratio matters, I'm left saying, why wasn't this digital exclusive for $1.99? Why wasn't this Marvel Unlimited? Because if these were Marvel Unlimited or digital exclusive, I would have felt like I won the lotto with these.
Well, it's bad because there's the X-Men Unlimited
cheap
series, the X-Men Unlimited series online is like delving into characters that like I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. This is really cool. I'm glad to see us. Like this Gambit and Patch series. Like I was excited. I was so excited for Patch. I was like,
you got a general Koi point.
Yeah. And then I was like, what the literal fuck? Like, it's like, okay, cool. Wolverine dealing with Madripoor, and there's like Russians in it. And it's like, what? Why?
It could have been a fantastic spy story. It honestly could. It had so much potential.
Nick Fury in a cat suit. Oof.
But then it started leaning in with some really uncomfortable microaggressions and tropes, like Tiger being an Asian woman called Tiger, stomping around in those little, the very trope-heavy type of costumes, being the dragon lady kind of persona. I'm just like, no, you could have done better. Please don't keep leaning into that. And oh God, the Russian woman with the fucking cornrows.
Oh my God.
Are you kidding me? Like
I've heard of ordering a black Russian before.
Right. I'm like, there was so many things that if they had just been corrected for, it would have made a much better story, but instead it just felt really disjointed, and I kept bracing myself for the next microaggression. And and I shouldn't even say microaggression. These were macroaggressions on some of them. I'm just like, seriously? Like the high point for me of this entire story is when Wolverine is holding Edith, and they're like, yeah, this is our child. They're blind and deaf and gender non-conforming, and the only place that they can really feel safe and use their power safely is in it basically a pocket dimension, and we just want to keep our child safe. I'm like, okay, everybody love on this child. I'm okay with this point. Yeah. This is how the story should be running. And then it went right back to, and now we're massacring natives. It's like, Oh, what the fuck? Like,
Patch felt like trying like a big old quill trying to patch too much together, and that's my point for this issue. It had way too many hands in the cookie jar. Like, my biggest contrivance is what was out of all these 4 groups that are trying to vie for these 3 Russian mutants that Wolverine somehow gets involved in. One, the Yakuza group has no business being there. It is a setup that has no payoff. They're experimenting on monkeys, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to blow past it. Then there's literally a point where they're trying to fire at Wolverine, and they all just decide, because they're firing at one another, we're just going to start fighting one another. There's too many people in this story, in the Patch story, that it doesn't make sense. It felt like not only was I confused, it felt like the characters were confused, and that just I still don't understand where, like, the idea of following the adventures of Patch, I think, has so much potential, but you made this a Wolverine. Honestly, feels like more like a Punisher story than anything. And
yes.
I don't really understand. I shouldn't say I don't understand. I'm more disappointed with the potential of exploring Patch and Madripoor, doing dirty deals, being a spy, being James Bond, doing anything, literally anything, other than just mass murder of indigenous people. It was so weird because it just felt like everything that was set up, there was no payoff to anything that was going on in Patch. Gambit was not as guilty, but it had payoffs that I just don't know were big enough. We're introduced to the Shadow King in issue 1, and then nowhere to be seen. Nothing to do with anything. So then what is the point of the Shadow King being involved with anything in issue 1?
And it's because he wanted to tie up what the fuck happened with Moira, because it's not super clear in the original Muir Island saga that the Shadow King has possessed Moira. She just seems fucking weird and horny.
But his head's over her all the time, so it's like it's supposed to be implied.
He's just a hat. Yeah. He's just a hat.
But again, it didn't really tie Moira in, and like it was so disjointed. Like, I'm like, why are we here? When did we get to this place? What's the goal? Why are you just showing up? Like, what?
Every issue of Gambit, when I opened it, like, I was like, because there was like a little jump between issues, and like, I'm like, what the literal fuck is going on? Like, I just put down issue 2. Why is this? Where am I?
Like, I read this cafe. Now we're running off a cliff. What the fuck?
Then we have Bounty, who's supposed to be this amazing bounty hunter, and that's fine.
She's the quicker picker, like, Gambit picker upper.
Like, big old stomp on me, mommy.
Much of you're telling us she's really great as opposed to showing us, and I know that's really hard to do in comics. I know being a dual medium of visual and written, there's a lot of things that go into storytelling of the comic medium, but it felt like you're telling us she's great but not really showing us. It felt a little haphazard to tie issues 2 to 5 together, to be like, we had to tie in this bounty plot, but then Lila Cheney is here, and then we also have this new character,
the only reason I still read was at the end of issue 1, they were like, ooh, Lila Cheney's gonna show up, and then like 3 fucking issues later.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you do these setups, but then you're not paying them off till later, which is fine, but where Patch didn't know where it was shooting its fireworks and didn't even know there were fireworks at all. Gambit, the fireworks felt really minimal in terms of what they could have been, and there's so much that just you were not the only one who noticed the Cheesecake Raven. It was really apparent. It was really not only you can do cheesecake. I don't want to tell. I think there's a way to do it that still feels classy. It still feels
Exterminators.
Yeah,
Exterminators is a great example, but it also personally, just a personal thing I noticed, it felt the art was a little inconsistent, especially with proportions. It felt like there were some points where areas that were meant to be highlighted were much larger than they were in other panels, and it felt there was just a little too much inconsistency of what does this character actually look like. That I can't get behind.
And is she 7 foot tall? Or is she 5 foot?
So, like, I love that Lila takes her someplace to get her a new uniform that's like super armor, and the arms are exposed. It's like
that super armor didn't do shit.
It
was
didn't.
bone like
really gets stabbed.
Okay. Now let's talk for a second about some of that. Okay. At this point, Lila Cheney has had about 10 appearances. This goes before any of Bounty's other 12 appearances in continuity. This goes before any of the other characters like Bake from issue 1. This goes before Bake's appearances, of which there's about 12, and they're almost all by Claremont. So this story that takes place shortly after Gambit is created, shortly after Lila Cheney is created, but before Bake or Bounty are ever created, goes kind of between them in retrospect by being forced in up the ass, sideways through the backwards colon.
Like a comic suppository.
Like a comic suppository. Because if I'm supposed to believe this is legit, I just have some issues. Like, I love Lila Cheney. We did 6 issues of Spellbound.
Just for Lila
Cheney. But the thing that happens is, how does she know Gambit? How does she know Gambit? How does she know Gambit? She hasn't met him through the X-Men yet. This is X-Men 267. How does she know Gambit?
They met as thieves and fucked, I guess. That's like their backstory. Like, I guess.
Yeah, but Gambit has fucked people he can't remember the name of. Come on.
But Lila Cheney is a little bit more discerning than that. She only likes underage farm boys.
Well, maybe that's why she went with Sam, because like her last relationship was with Gambit, and she's like, it's like, I can't get the smell of this French out of me, so I'm gonna go with this coal miner's kid.
It's just beignets and chicory coffee.
I mean, I love, these are all hilarious. Like, it's funny that we get to have this conversation, but at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, that's like the fun of being a fan, but you still are like, I bought this book, and like,
this conversation is better. Like, this conversation is making my money worth out of it.
Yeah,
but, like, my money was not like, no, I did not get my money's worth out of these series.
And if I didn't have people to talk with about this, I'd be like, nope.
If you've gone back in time to flesh out a story, and then people who read it need to be like, I guess I'm going to do the mental work to figure out how this is possible and works, it has not been a successful retcon story. And we know that that is what happens most of the time. They're really difficult to pull off. They don't usually work. And yet there's this like, aren't you charmed? We're doing it again. We're going back. No,
we couldn't, but we will.
It's his problem. It's their own work. Yeah. That's the problem that I'm having. Like, one of the biggest problems I'm having is it's their own source material. They made these stories. Like, some of these are really crucial points that you either blew past or fully fucking ignored when writing this one. So now it's like, did you not look at your own source material that you wrote, that you've been developing for years now? Like, what's this? Like, we'll try and make it fit, but why?
I'm just glad Claremont didn't try to put in his Kate pride as the love child.
Nope. I was afraid that Kate was going to show up in an unrelated way. I was afraid that she and Excalibur were going to be on an adventure. Kate was going to come across Gambit and be like, who is this red-eyed man? And that little girl, she looks like Aurora. I don't know, fuzzy elf star child stuff. To the lighthouse.
And he did do, like, I have to give Claremont credit. He didn't call anybody a silly cow in this.
Yeah, and he didn't use the N-word. Yay.
True.
What a weird bar to have to pass.
Right.
But he did use yum a few times.
No. Okay, so now let me ask you guys a question. I have a question. Because ultimately, these were 40 pages of story. They just aren't they aren't whole stories. They are really good Marvel Comics presents backups. They are 2 really good issues. They are 1 really good annual, but they are not 5 issues each. What they are is a new category of comic that I am going to refer to henceforth as Omni Fodder. Marvel needs a way to be able to turn 3 Uncanny X-Men Omnibus editions into 5. So what they want to do is they want to find stories that can go back and pad out those years. Because I'll never forget, and like not like it was so long ago, but a couple of weeks ago, I'm talking with Blake of Blake's Buzz, best guy in the world, and I'm talking with Blake, and he's like, this is your kind of area. I want to know, could they ever do a 3rd volume of X-Men by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee omnibus? And I'm like, well, they're barely in the 2nd volume at all. So not really. I guess they could go back and they could take every story that's been released that fits in that window and blow it out into 4 editions instead of 2 editions. But that's about it. And I really think that's what they might do with these. I think this might just be another 100-something pages in the Uncanny Omnibus and another 100 pages in the Larry Hama Omnibus for Wolverine, because they're both by those people anyway, to your point, Raven. These are the people who wrote those omnibus editions. How do you guys feel about the possibility of these being sandwiched between classic stories?
Please no.
Oh, God.
Please God, no, because that would only point out some of the inconsistencies or some
Agreed.
of the other continuity errors more. Because if you sandwich them in between the originals, you're going to be like, "Hey, didn't I just see this thing go off and this other thing, or didn't they mention like this person like dying?" And then you're making a reference in the next thing because it's the modern and the old, and you're like, I'm having problems actually getting these to mesh up, which is a interesting problem to have.
Yep. I'm not looking forward to the Extreme X-Men that's coming out by Chris Claremont. I'm like, am I gonna buy it? Yeah, because it's got Rachel and Kitty. But but then I'm adding to the problem. It's not going to do anything for it. And but yeah, no, I do not want to see these new stories sandwich in between the classic stories. I think, especially Claremont, he's got different eras where he has different quality of work. Like his OG X-Men run, stunning problems, got lots of notes, but it's an amazing run, and it's where the basis of these characters comes from. I think when he is doing this, I can only count it counter programming for people who don't like the Krakoan era of X-Men. It's him showing his disdain for the era in a way that I don't like. Because if I want you to go back and tell a story again, I want you to do like what Gillen just did with in Immortal X-Men 8 with go back and tell me some more details about why Destiny was with the Black Loom Project. Not give me a nonsensical story and introduce all these characters that you're supposed to care about in Gambit and Patch, and they never are anywhere again.
Yeah.
It's very much the comic book equivalent of the special editions of Star Wars. I get that there's stuff that we all want to do that we don't get to do. And we've all created things that get out in the world that we say are finished, and then we look at them and we go, oh, I could have done it so much better. But the fact is, as soon as you release it out into the world, it now belongs to the readers. They work it in, and these are such long-standing stories that, even if they had problems, we've all figured out how we're working with the problems that were there. This is our canon, and that's fine. To go back in time and be like, don't worry, I'm going to fix it. And you're like, you just added shit that doesn't even look good that I don't want. That doesn't fix anything.
No.
And I mean, that's really how those omnibuses will feel if this stuff is in there. It's like, I bought it for this great stuff that is mine. And now you've stuck in these special effects that don't work.
Well, I mean, I think that's a big problem is comics from 40 years ago were good 40 years ago.
Yes.
Right.
And we recognize them as being the basis for a character that has then progressed and hopefully been developed and given more nuance. But we also recognize how effing problematic comic books were 40 years ago on like just across the board, like sex, gender, consent. Like there was a bunch of freaking problems, and we recognize those, and that's why we've moved hopefully forward on how we tell stories and how we develop and nuance characters. And these kind of felt like throwbacks to 40 years ago with all of the problems that we thought we had at least somewhat course corrected for over 40 years. And it's like all of it just, bleh. I'm like, you literally created a love interest so that you could fridge them. Like, there's a problem. That's a massive freaking problem.
And like the 5th issue of these 2 miniseries, Jonah, wrap us on up, bring us on home.
So one thought in reference to something similar to TK's talking about, this feels like special edition of video games where they add maybe like one new chapter where it's the exact same game, but the bigger difference there is they try to, at least in an enhanced version, they try to fix the problems it had before. But that's not what you really do in an omnibus, and that's not really what these stories are kind of seeking to do. They're not really trying to fix things. They're just trying to kind of pad out pages in time so that you can collect and add more and sell people the exact same omnibus that's already been out. But now you can say, well, this has these stories that you probably didn't read or you did read and didn't like. And that's where I maybe have a little bit of problem in terms of like, the capitalist venture of it all. I also, this isn't maybe the biggest problem in these two, but it is something I do notice is you have to be very careful when you're doing these stories with characters that have gone through plenty of growth, because it feels like sometimes writers try to ascribe characterization to characters during a time period when A, that's not how they were acting during that time period, or B, they're not taking into consideration maybe some things that did happen. I don't know if Gambit and Wolverine, as the leads of these books, really kind of feel like how they're supposed to. And granted, maybe I didn't read during that time, but I don't know if I can fully believe this is how they're going to act if you're telling me this is during this time period.
I agree. They don't read as smoothly as I would want them to. On the whole, I'm going to say that these are kind of failed experiments as insertions. They're not even the best individual stories, but if they could cut them down, if they could get them down to 2 issues, get rid of some of the stuff that is unnecessary, yeah, I think I could be more into what they're trying to do, but this might be the end for me reading these slot back in stories.
Yeah.
Agreed.
There's one story I want them to tell, but like they refuse to tell it. Like the whole miniseries for Rachel that was planned way back when. Show me that one. That one I want to see. Like Rachel in Mojo World dealing with Spiral, but I'm just
honestly, let's go back and let's go develop a time period where a Dazzler was a Herald of Galactus. Let's just go through that time again.
Yes, let's do mini adventures.
Right.
Well, guys, this has been an incredible pilot for an all-new way to do X's for Podcast. I am so incredibly psyched and honored that so many incredible people came out to join us today. Like, me, Nathan, and TK, we were here the whole time, and we were joined by such amazing voices like Jonah and Raven, who are on the screen now. We also had the incredible Jake, Kyle, Steve. We had... I don't think I'm missing anybody. Arturo. We had Arturo on for Immortal and Red. Yes, and that was so great. And we've had Kevo, my amazing husband, our incredible producer, running the board.
Thank you so much, Kevo.
Thank you, Kevo.
Hitting every butt.
You did so good.
You're welcome.
Yay!
And I am so excited to be doing this for you guys. Weekly going forward, we're going to be covering every corner of the Marvel Universe, a different corner each week, hitting everything from Avengers to Magic to even some of the Spider titles as necessary.
Dark Web,
that's why it's necessary. But it has been such a pleasure to pilot this new show. And I just want to give everybody on screen a chance to sign off again real quick. And I am Nico. You guys can find me on Nico Action on all socials. That's NicoAction.
It's Nathan. You can find me all socials at Dazzler AOA, like in the Age of Apocalypse, not the red, not the Black Lodge.
And I'm TK. You can find me everywhere at XNateXGrayX.
And that makes me your art ho auntie, Raven, aka Sanguine Threads. Come over and find me.
And you can find me over on Araco or on socials at Peak Jonah.
You can find this show all over the internet at X's for Podcast on all relevant socials, xsforpodcast.com, and right here on the Hubs Plus network, your home for shows like X's for Podcast Live, The Billy Club, and more amazing programming like HTML, our look into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Alien Universe, and every other super sci-fi franchise you can imagine. And until next time, it has been our pleasure to bring this to you. Keep those mutant gateways open, those Krakoan lights. Nope, backward. Keep those Krakoan lights lit. Nope, backward. Keep those mutant lights lit, those Krakoan gateways open. Remember, this is live, so that's gonna stay there. And we'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.